Welcome back, everybody, to another cryptocurrency news article. This one comes out of Crypto Daily, and it's on creating a future of trust by cutting out the middleman. Now, some of us in the crypto and blockchain space are in it because why we want to get away from the middleman. We don't need them. Like we want to send transactions from point A to point B, and we also want to be in control of our own personal identities and data. So this article is going to cover a little bit about that. So here we go. The way we handle data is broken. There's an elephant in the room, and it's data intermediaries. These intermediaries or middlemen are the mediator between those who make their data available and those who collect data. They govern your data, chop it up into data sets, and sell it or make it accessible, all while convincing you that they can be confidently trusted to take care of that data. Of course, you wouldn't just give anyone your personal data, so there needs to be an exchange of services. Some data intermediaries you've likely already given your information to, including Google, Facebook, Instagram, Tinder, Uber, Strava, PayPal, and WhatsApp. Now that's just scratching the surface. The more you think about it, how many online services and apps actually hold your personal data? The more you consider how much of the advertising you see has been tailored specifically to you, the traditional Web 2.0 exchange of your data in exchange for access to digital services has often a marketable product. Now, let it not be forgotten that the collection of your data goes beyond your details and behavior, but also includes information from facial recognition and voice messaging. Intermediary data isn't always used honestly either. Fraudsters use legitimate data sets gathered from the big social, marketing, and e commerce platforms to correlate the sets of data stolen by hackers and sold to the dark web. That allows them, for example, to know that they have the right address for you and location of the data on the cat pictures you posted publicly to Instagram. Our data is valuable and often nowhere near as benign as we think when it's in the hands of bad actors. Now, Web3 isn't happy about the old deal, and for good reasons. We're seeing disruptions that change the role of data intermediaries and put the power and control back into the hands of the users in the form of things like data unions and self sovereign IDs. But like the platforms of Web 2.0, these things are still too siloed. Real control needs further change. Now, the current asymmetrical face of data. For those unfamiliar with the concept of data asymmetry, in layman's terms, this is where there is a data accessible disparity between two entities. Essentially, the steward of the data is able to unlock more value than the contributor. The lack of fairness in the exchange is a key concern for Web3 developers. Now, here's an example. You use Google Maps for directions and location services to get from point A to point B. So do many of the other cars around you. Google now knows how many cars are in the area, how bad the traffic is, and where you are all going. Aggregated over time, this data shows them when traffic surges, where there's the biggest bottlenecks are, and the general flow of cars at different times of the day. Now has lots of aggregated data that they can still sell to third parties, typically for marketing and advertising purposes. It is true. It's crazy. Like you just hop in your car and it already knows the address where you're going, because the phones, the maps, the apps, they're tracking you. They're using that data for information. Now, as we become more aware of how our data is collected and sold, for many of us, the result is frustrating. Why are we not profiting and being rewarded? Is access to service a fair exchange? Web3 says it isn't. Web3 is a decentralizing data so that the world in which organizations no longer buy and sell aggregate data becomes a reality. Instead, for access to your information, they'll pay you directly. Now, when the data and service exchange becomes equal and both parties receive a balance of value, we will have achieved data symmetry. This is one of the goals of Web3. Paul Mitchell, Senior Director of Technology Policy at Microsoft, who predicted the future of data symmetry, which was pre Web3 back in 2014, said that data driven economies are reliant on dependable supplies of data to be sustainable. The current imbalance between the amount of data about individuals held by or accessible to institutions and the inability of those same individuals to control the use of that data has created an asymmetry of power, resulting in a crisis of trust. Now, what does a world of data without intermediaries look like? Perhaps the best way to explore this potential is by looking through the lens of self. This anti fraud solution looks to tackle the problems caused by how we handle data today by giving control of our identifiable data back to the user and making personal data and communications part of identity. Now, Self makes no secret of its position on the mismanagement of data in Web 2.0 and is effectively solving it with every new user and business that joins its service. The cost of data fraud and cybercrime globally was over $6 trillion in 2021, most of which is an avoidable cost for both people and organizations. By connecting with their customers through Self, companies can access to verified information without having to collect it. Now, this protects the user's personal data while allowing companies to process user data with it containing personal information. Why gather data and store it and rely on it, even if it's not accurate when you do not need it? Self sees today's data middlemen as the data partners of the future, tailoring advertising and marketing more effectively and being useful, not just to the companies, but to the consumers. Now, Self's messaging system is another revelation. We've seen that Telegram and Signal could win millions of users simply by encrypting communications and stopping data from being collected, but Self goes beyond that, as well as end-to-end encryptions between two parties in a chat or call. Both participations need to be fully verified. With Telegram or Signal, an encrypted chat can't stop you from being scammed, but with Self, it can. As you build up your verified contract list, you build a genuine net of people and businesses that you don't need to trust blindly. You have the knowledge that they are who they say they are, even if it's someone you don't know personally, like an employee at your bank. Now, the single digital identity. Identity is about more than documents and accounts. Conferred upon us by governments and companies, our identities online encompass our voices. Now, what we say and write, our data is everything about us. And what do we and our credentials? Everything from passports to degrees and employment references. That vision of identity lends itself to a single digital identity, just as we have a single identity in real life. Now, the elements discussed above, including taking control of our data, securing and distributing communications, and creating a web of trusted connections, all also lead towards that single digital identity. Right now, each time you want to join a website, you either have to type in your personal data or make a sign-up connection with Google, Facebook, or Apple, to name a few. The latter is certainly easier, but it does mean contributing even more data to these mega middlemen. When you consider that the average person visits around 100 websites per day, this is a lot of data being given away, and it's not just your credentials, it's your behavior data too. How you use the website, where you click, how long you spend on a page, and whether you convert, all are collected and used. Now, alongside websites use, we must bring apps into the equation. On average, smartphone users have 40 apps downloaded, not including the pre installed ones, and cycle through about 18 of them daily. Your interactions with these apps are tracked for behavior data too, and in many of these apps, you give away heaps of identifiable personal information. Strava, Uber, and Google Maps give you location information. Tinder, Bumble, and Grindr reveal personality and dating habits, while PayPal, Venmo, and Zelle all show your spending habits and more. Now, for all these websites and all of these apps, which can number into hundreds for some users, the data exchange is hugely imbalanced. You have many passwords to remember, or even worse, you are using the same one for all of them. And you are easily identifiable. The single digital identity, such as the envisioned by Self, will eventually allow you to bring everything into an app representing you, where you control your data and what is shared. Even better, in time, you will be rewarded financially for allowing companies to use your data or market to you. Data aggregation platforms that profit from collecting your data will even stand to benefit because they can operate more freely on anonymous data, allowing their clients to serve customers more effectively while protecting its personal data. Now, the verdict, it's time to put users back in control. Data gets old really fast. Simply changes like replacing personal information in company records with anonymous identifiers very quickly breaks down the fraudster's model, creating symmetrical relationships between companies and users, builds stronger trust, and removes the role of the company as a provider of the identity in its relationship with its users. Now, both changes lead to much needed single date digital identity, but they come with unique challenges. Convincing businesses that they can be more profitable and successful while protecting their customers will be the key to achieving mass adoption. So yeah, so your data is being given like no other all over the world. So like that's definitely the trust is like there is no trust anymore. It's like, oh wait a minute, you're selling all my data. Like now you're starting to realize, okay, so like all the dating apps show my dating habits, all the payment apps I have on my phone are showing my spending habits, Google Maps showing my location information. So it's crazy out there. Like we need to be controlling it, or we that's why I like using because you're getting paid a bit of bat tokens for it. So we're kind of headed. So that was a lot of information right there. But I do hope you guys enjoyed this article and maybe learned something. And if so, hit that thumbs up for me, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, the Crypto Sherpa is out.